What's up, everybody? This is Fred Rachani of TSC News, here with an exclusive interview with former UFC fighter Chael Sonnen. Please check it out. Feel free to follow us on this SoundCloud account, soundcloud.com/TSC News. And if you want to check out all my other exclusive interviews with all your favorite stars in sports, entertainment, and beyond, check out youtube.com/The Sports Courier, Twitter @Sports Courier, Instagram @TSC News. Feel free to check us out all over social media. If you're going to tweet us or Instagram us, please use the hashtag TSC News. And well, without further ado, here's our exclusive interview with the man they call the bad guy. What's up, everybody? This is Fred Rachani of TSC News. I have right here on the line a very special guest. He is an ultimate fighter, a commentator, podcast extraordinaire. On the mean streets of West Lynn, they call him a gangster, the bad guy. We're calling him Chael Sonnen. Chael, thanks so much for joining us, man. How's everything going?
I wouldn't miss it, buddy. Everything is going great. We got a little rain out here. I'm in Oregon, and we happen to like the rain, so it's a beautiful day.
Now, how was your weekend? Pretty eventful, right, with Metamoris?
Yeah, man, I had a good time. That Metamoris thing is really a neat thing to be part of. I can tell you this, 20 minutes is a long time to wrestle. I grew up as a wrestler, and it's one of the hardest and most taxing, demanding the physical sports there is. And we only had to wrestle 6-minute matches, and then in college, 7-minute matches. So to be out there for 20 minutes competing is a very tough atmosphere, but man, what a popular and well-received and fun event.
Now, a lot of it was kind of shrouded in secrecy, and they've been running a few events over the years. Do you see Metamoris being kind of a viable business down the road, one that maybe MMA fans will gravitate towards?
Yeah, I think it's an evolving business. I think each time there's been a Metamoris, there's been something different. And, so the absolute paradigm I don't think is fully formed yet. But as far as the grappling, the fact that there are no breaks, there are no timeouts, there are no rounds, there are no weight restrictions, I think that really brings us back to the olden day, which is, what I grew up on. It's what got me into the sport, watching Hoist Gracie go out there and weigh 178 pounds and take on all comers. So, yeah, I think they're very close to a finished product, but it does keep evolving a little bit. And I don't know that they're completely settled in yet, but I don't know that they should be. I like the fact that, they'll see what works. They throw a few things at the wall, and not everything sticks. But it's fun, man. I can tell you, it was really neat. You brought up the secrecy. For listeners that might not know what you're talking about, they held an event over the weekend. There was no fans allowed, no tickets sold, nobody present. They took us into a silent, private room. 2 athletes go in. They turn the camera on. We wrestle. One guy comes out the winner. And it was pretty cool. It was a pretty neat thing. It was different as an athlete, competing in front of nobody, competing in complete silence. My coach was talking to me no louder than I'm talking to you right now, and I heard every word that came out of his mouth. So, it was different, but it was cool. It was fun.
That's awesome. Now, another thing that's evolving is professional wrestling. And with the recent announcement of Jeff Jarrett revealing not only the roster of Global Force Wrestling, but the commentator for Global Force Wrestling, that means Chael P. Sonnen is now doing pro wrestling. Sort of. Chael, how excited are you to get involved with GFW?
Well, I'm pretty excited about it. I got the connection made through Jim Ross. I love working with Jim Ross. I want to be a good commentator. It's like anything else. If you get into it, it's competitive, and it's a skill, and you gotta get better at it. And he is not only a great partner, but he's also a tremendous coach and mentor in that capacity. So I kind of got to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I got to do wrestling, which I'm really excited to do. New challenges, different sport for me, and then I get to work with Jim Ross. So it was pretty hard to turn that down. In addition to everything, Fred, I'll remind you, they also set up shop in Las Vegas. So anytime there's a chance to go out to Las Vegas and they're going to call it work, I guess. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like a really fun time. But, man, I'm pretty excited to see where it goes. They got good leadership with the Jarrett family. Those guys have been in wrestling since before I was born. So I think that it's really got legs to it. Let's see and watch it grow.
You said Jim Ross. Jim Ross said in a recent interview that while he's not interested in going back to WWE just yet, he is interested in GFW. So are you confirming for us that Jim Ross is involved, or are you talking more just as far as him coaching you on a personal basis?
Well, I can confirm that I fully believe that he will be involved. I fully believe that we will be partners. That was the plan from the very beginning. In fact, the whole thing got going because of Jim in terms of my participation. So all along, it's always been Jim and I. Now, Jim is in a little bit different spot now since we started talking. He's gotten very busy. He's in the barbecue sauce business now. He's in the podcasting, as you know, which his podcast grew in size, and now he has to do twice the amount of shows that he was doing when we initially started talking. And above everything else, he's an Oklahoma fan, and I don't know how much he wants to leave Oklahoma right now, but I think we're going to be able to seduce him and get him over, and I can't confirm to you that he signed, no, but I can do the next best thing. I can definitely speculate on it and tell you that I fully believe that they will get a deal done with Jim Ross.
Very nice. Now, we did see some of the roster for GFW. Right before this interview, I believe Jeff Jarrett announced the full roster on YouTube. Didn't get a chance to check it out, but some notable names, such as the Bullet Club and PJ Black, a.k.a. Justin Gabriel of WWE fame. I'm sure Jeff Jarrett gave you his pitch. I'm not asking you to give us Jeff Jarrett's pitch here, but let's just say we're in an elevator. You got a couple minutes to sell me on GFW compared to, say, I don't know, WWE and TNA. What will your elevator pitch be for wrestling fans?
Well, I would tell you this, and we'll see how Jeff Jarrett wants to handle it. My encouragement, if I was to play Jarrett for a minute here, my encouragement would be, don't think that we have to have our own fans. Don't think that we have to have, it's not Ford and Chevy, where a guy, if he puts a Ford in the driveway, he's not going to pull a Chevy next to it. He has to pick one. Make sure you understand that we can all share the fans, and make sure we also acknowledge the WWE is an incredible product. TNA has got a long and established product that's very good. So a lot of times when people jump in the same space as somebody else, they think they have to be better or put down the competition to put themselves above. Wrestling's wrestling, and there's not enough of it. It's kind of like fighting used to be. Now, Dana White has still got bullies giving us a show a week. But, Fred, I was following the sport as a fan, go back to MMA. There was 5 shows a year, and in a good year there'd be 6. Then Pride came along, and they were putting on 4 to 5 shows a year. But all in, that's 10 shows a year worldwide with every major organization that could get on pay-per-view. That was all we had. So wrestling's still in that spot. There's a lot of content out there, but there's not enough. Wrestling fans want something to do more than just on Monday night. So, Jeff's going to be able to fill that. He's going to be able to get a major TV deal that's in the works, and I can't really say more than that on that. That's his job to release that info when he wants to, but it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting as far as the pitch on GFW. We're bringing back pro wrestling. And for years, there has been sports entertainment, which is fun, and it is entertaining. But the days of pro wrestling, what I grew up on, the late 1980s, that's when it was really fun, and that's when it was still pro wrestling, and that is what the difference with GFW will be.
I got a press release from your publicist, Jen Wank, and it was not about the success of your podcast. It was not about your illustrious MMA career. No, it wasn't even about your great career as a TV analyst. It was about your successful UFC 187 prediction. Chael, how long have you been moonlighting as Miss Cleo?
I'll tell you, I stand by that prediction, and that fight was never going to happen. But I definitely didn't have a crystal ball and know that John would end up in a legal jam, and that's why it would be canceled. So, I take no pleasure in being correct in that. I take no pleasure in what John's going through, but I do think he's going to handle it as best as can be handled. Once that egg is fried, it's kind of hard to uncook it. But he's going to have to deal with it. And man, that fight was doomed from the beginning.
And why do you say it was doomed from the beginning?
It just simply wasn't going to happen. And there's a lot of moving parts. And again, my final analysis was correct that the fight isn't going to happen. But as far as why I thought that or what I knew, I got to play that a little bit close to the vest. It didn't happen. I think there's enough problems surrounding it right now. I don't want to, kick anybody while they're down. But I think they've got the right matchup now. I do think Daniel and Anthony will go out and compete, and John's going to get some things straightened out, and he'll be back later this year. I'm very confident in that, and I also think he's going to end up being the world champion by the end of this year. I don't think anybody would disagree with me there. If he gets back in there, John Jones can beat anybody alive.
Here's one issue, though, I don't see a lot of people talking about. Reebok dropped him. Of course, before Reebok, Nike dropped him. Let's just say John Jones comes out of this unscathed, or dare I say, God forbid, he ends up in jail for a little bit and wants to come back to UFC. I mean, of course, he's the best fighter in the world right now. Could you see any issue with Reebok saying, hey, Dana, hey, Lorenzo, we don't want this guy in your cage?
Oh, no, certainly not. The way their contract is structured, they wouldn't have that ability anyway. But no, I don't think they would do that. They could sponsor privately whoever they want. They've got the company as a whole right now. And I don't really know Reebok's business model. I'm not a shareholder in Reebok. I'm excited that they're in this space, but I don't know a ton about that company. But I can tell you, I am a little confused why they're even sponsoring athletes, only in that when they have the entire company, and everybody has to wear Reebok on fight week and anytime they're on a UFC program, I'm not sure the advantage of them sponsoring a guy separately. So I think Reebok perhaps also is aware that they might have overspent on that, and I think they were only too happy to unwind that deal. I think they'll probably unwind other deals as well if they're given the opportunity, because they've already got them. It kind of felt like they were double spending there, like they bought something that was already bought. So again, I don't know that model, and those guys are very successful, so good for them. But I don't know that necessarily was related as much to what John's going through, as much as it was just a good opportunity to get out of a deal that they didn't want to make in the first place.
What do you make about all the fighters who are not happy with this deal and publicly commenting about it?
There's a history that just is forgotten, and it's not by me because I've been in the sport so long. I had my first fight in 1997. I was with the UFC since 2005. So I was there for the evolution and watched it all happen. I can tell you, as a guy that came through it, the way the table is set now when guys sit down at it's pretty neat. It wasn't like that for us. And to remind you of the history of it, we didn't have any sponsors when this started. It was a major cart before the horse, chicken egg scenario. Can you get sponsors before you're getting viewers? Can you get viewers without getting sponsors type deal? So we didn't have any. And eventually Dana said, go out, get whatever sponsors you want. Even though this is my TV show, even though I'm the one paying for all the cameras and the lights and taking all the risk here, I will allow you guys to profit. And, that's just something we never should have been able to do. That's not the way executive television works. If you set up the cameras and it's your show and you bought the airtime, all the revenue goes to you, the executive producer. Dana let us become partners in it and let us do our own thing. And like any good deed, they never go unpunished. So now people are attempting to punish him and say, well, you're taking this away from us. The reality is it was a gift that we never should have been given. It just wouldn't have happened in any other walk of life that involves television. An example I'll give you just for today, I'm on ESPN. I've got to wear a blank suit and a blank tie and a blank button-up shirt. I cannot go out there with some kind of a sponsor on their channels. If I'm wearing any type of sponsor on their channels, that would go to Disney, who's the parent company of ESPN. That's just the way TV works. I'm a hired talent. I get my check at the end of the night, and I go home. and any profits they can make go to them. Any losses they incur go to them. And I leave with my check either way. So that's the way TV works. When they got the Reebok deal, and in the other scenario, they would have kept all the money and just told the fighters this is gone completely. Instead of doing that, they redistributed it to the fighters. But once again, no good deed goes unpunished. So as soon as you pay a guy an amount, human psychology just instantly says, well, that's not enough. And, the reality is it's all of it. They're paying out all of it. So when 100% of the revenues are going back out, it's kind of tough to say that's not enough. That's all of it.
True, but you're mentioning about ESPN. ESPN also broadcasts soccer as well as NASCAR, and those have visible sponsors. So couldn't you make the argument that sponsors are certainly not hurting those sports?
Yeah, well, I don't think sponsors were hurting the UFC either. My intent there was just to say, that's just not how television works. And I made this comment before and had some people push back and say, oh, that's not true. Chael's trying to say athletes can't have sponsors. What about Michael Jordan? And, it's like, guys, don't be ridiculous here. A basketball player has to wear a pair of shoes. They're not making blank shoes. Every shoemaker puts his little logo on there, and the 1-inch swoosh of Nike is not exempt to that. So, some of those things certainly happen, and there's ways to get in it. But Michael Jordan is not walking onto the court in anything that doesn't say Chicago Bulls on it. He's not walking out there with a uniform that doesn't look like the rest of his team. He's not walking out there with his own uniforms on. And the way the NASCAR business is set up, yeah, they do go on those drivers, but don't think for a second that they're not also going to the company of NASCAR. They're all partners together. So the NASCAR model is far more complex than just simply saying, guys have sponsored. That's a totally different business model, but I do acknowledge that puts a little hole in the boat of my initial statement, but I'm going to stand by it.
Fair enough. A lot of people are comparing Conor McGregor to you with this trash talk, with this bravado, taking a Brazilian world champion who previously wasn't a draw and might actually become a draw in this upcoming fight in the summer. Do you think the Conor McGregor-Chael Sonnen comparison is fair?
I think that Conor and I both had a lot of fun. I think that we embraced it very well, and I think the comparison is flattering. I find him to be much more entertaining than I found my own stuff. He's very prepared. He's very professional. There's never a time they put a camera on him when he's not ready. And that requires a massive amount of work and preparation, and he's performed every single time. I can't say enough good things about the way he's handling his brand and marketing himself and helping the entire industry, particularly that weight class. That weight class has been a snoozer from the beginning. Jose Aldo is the best fighter in the UFC right now. In fact, he's even got the ranking. They've elevated him in the pound-for-pound rankings to number one. And there's nobody disputing that. That's how good he is. He's also the worst drawing champion of all time. And that's about to change. His fight with Conor is going to be the biggest one of the year, number-wise. And the trickle-down effect that he'll feel for the rest of his career, it's going to change after this night. And it's not changing because of him. It's changing because of Conor. So, that weight class really owes him a thank you equal to the one that the women's division owes Ronda Rousey.
You're no stranger to bouncing back from controversy. Got on your feet after that suspension, doing the thing with ESPN, successful with podcasting. You mentioned earlier you think John Jones not going to win everything. Goes well for him. He'll bounce back. Your former rival Anderson Silva, obviously he's in some trouble right now. Do you think his legacy is permanently damaged, or do you think he too can make a comeback?
Well, it's for sure damaged. Let's compare it to grades in school. If he was an A+ before, he's an A- now, but he's still an A. Anderson is still great. Did it damage it? Yeah, sure it did. Yeah, it's a dent in the bumper. And he's got a hearing coming up, and he's going to have an opportunity to say his piece. I can tell you, as one of his rivals and former competitors, I give him a pass. The guy had his leg snapped in two, and if he had to turn to the free market or the black market and able to repair his leg and allow him to have a good and healthy life, let's forget about sport for a minute. He needs to repair his leg so that he can go on in life and, be comfortable and be as normal as possible, then good for him. I do resent a little bit that he doesn't just tell us what he did. I think science and medicine would be very curious. How exactly did you cure that leg in record time and return to form so quickly? I think it's almost a medical miracle, and some other people could benefit from it if he would just come out and tell us, exactly what he did. I think that's how this should be looked at. It's really quite a neat thing that he was able to find something that cured him and repaired him, and I think that the doctors that gave it to him should be praised as opposed to being put down. Now, when you bring sport back into the fold, that's where the problems come in. Now you're talking about some rule violations and being out of compliance, and he's going to have to deal with that. But if we take sport out of it, what happened there is as close to a miracle as I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
So do you think athletic commissions should be trying to work more with different labs and the people that are creating these drugs that are considered PEDs as opposed to going against them? Because perhaps there's some that could be legal that wouldn't be as detrimental to some fighters as, say, other steroids, maybe more traditional ones?
Well, pens aren't illegal. That's greatly misunderstood, and we've done a bad job in the media of making people believe that. Performance enhancing, those are positive terms. Those are a good thing. And every medicine in America is a performance enhancer. If it de-enhanced you, that would be what we would consider malpractice. It has to make you better. A doctor can't give it to you. So, and there's also a belief that you can't take performance enhancers. There's a number of performance enhancers you can, but they have a banned list. And that banned list is very sensitive. It's very hard to understand. It's very hard to even track down the list. I'm a fighter. I'm serving a suspension for violating that list. And in my life, I've never seen the list. I've never been handed one. I don't even know where to get it. I don't know if you've got one. If you do, I hope you send it to me when the show's over, and I'll quit making this statement. But I've never seen the list, and I don't know what's on it. Now, you said something else in your question. You said the word steroids. Look, if we're talking about steroids, no, you got to ban that stuff. And I grew up believing that. When I grew up, that's all that was banned. The only talk we had was don't take steroids. Over time, we've changed that to performance enhancer. Well, that's not fair. First off, because it's not true. Performance enhancers are allowed. It's just you have to make sure it's the right ones. And secondly, that's just way too broad a spectrum. We don't want to tell people that they have to choose between their health and their sport. We just want to make sure they're compliant with their sport. So if we can make those rules a little bit clearer, I think we can all agree right now, throw out steroids completely, throw out illegal drugs. The problem is, and we did learn this when John Jones went through it, there are some illegal drugs, including cocaine, that isn't against sport. Now, that's a little bit confusing, but that's what we all learned together. If you would have asked me 5 months ago if cocaine was allowed for sport, I'd have laughed and told you, of course not. Well, it turns out I'm wrong. I guess it is. I don't know what's on those damn lists. That's what's so hard about it. I don't think you know or any of the listeners know. It's a very complicated list. So if we all want to just say ban steroids, I don't think there'd be any discussion here. We can all agree with that. But the rest of it, man, it can get very confusing. It can be very, very hard to follow the list.
So do you think with the UFC's drug policy that they're going to be instituting, I mean, do you think right now it's going to be more harm than good, and over time it's going to get better as I guess the UFC and the Athletic Commission learns more about PEDs?
I really don't know. I can tell you the Olympic standard seems to be the most respected standard out there. Here's the good news: when you follow the Olympic standard, that list is very archaic and it's very absurd. Some of the things that are on the list that they will ban an amateur athlete for. By example, if you have 2 cups of coffee in a 15-minute period, your caffeine levels will exceed their allowable limit. They will ban you from Olympic sport. They will take your medals away. I don't think that that's right. At least as an American, yes, caffeine is a drug, and yes, it is a performance-enhancing drug. It's why we drink it in the morning, to get our day going and help our performance. But in America, we just don't care, but we'll give caffeine to children in America. This is a world list, and other countries don't agree with us. They believe that caffeine is a drug, and they're right, it is. And so when you go off of a world list, now all of a sudden caffeine falls on it. I could play this example 100 more times with something as silly as caffeine, and you might even roll your eyes and go, Chael, that's not what we're talking about. Well, yeah, we are. If you follow the Olympic list, it's black and white. If you have it in your system, you're out. There is no hearing. There is no discussion. There is no explanation. It's pass or fail. And caffeine would be treated the same as an anabolic steroid. I disagree with that. I can tell you in crime in America, if I jaywalk or if I rob a bank, the punishments are greatly different because the crimes are greatly different, even though they're both illegal. In the world of drug failure, as it pertains to sport, all crimes are created the same. A caffeine level that's above the limit is the same as an anabolic steroid. And I think that that's a problem. I think it's mainly, look, if you don't want us to have coffee, okay, fine. But I don't think anyone knows that until I just said it right now. I think everybody else is going, wait a minute, you got to be kidding me. So when you end up in that jam, I will feel bad for the guys. You know, there's a lot of things you can get over the counter. Anderson's not just in a jam over the steroid. He's in a jam over two different types of allergy medicine. One of which is Benadryl. Benadryl is on the shelf of every store in America, including our convenience stores, 7-Elevens, things like that, right next to the NyQuil. It just kind of helps you get a night's sleep. And, man, that just shouldn't be on the ban list. That's absurd, but it is. And if you followed an Olympic standard, he'd be done for 2 years. And I think that's very silly, and I don't think the Olympic test should be as respected as it is. I think the reality is, it oversees amateurs that have no money or ability to defend themselves. So the list has never been challenged, which is what adds to its credibility. But if you look a little further into it, it's never been challenged because it's never regulated anybody that had an ability to challenge it. So that's really, you don't see that in our other professional sports in America, be it baseball, basketball, or football, because they have unions that step in and say, look, we're fine with you testing the guys, but you're going to have to explain yourself. Why are you testing a guy for Benadryl? We don't agree to this. And there's no dialogue like that in our sport. It's government agencies that test, and there's no buffer. In the other sports I mentioned, it would be a union. There's no buffer between the government, the testers, and the leadership itself. So it can be a little bit tough, and yes, there are guys that are going to fail this test once it gets implemented, and people are going to see the problems with it. But until then, it's still the rules, and they have to be followed.
We took some fan questions. You ready?
Absolutely.
Okay, this one from Ben Ostner. Chael, are you interested in having one more match?
In MMA, I am done. I will not do MMA again.
What about pro wrestling?
A pro wrestling match? I've always wanted to do that. I could be talked into that. I don't know how to wrestle. I'm not a trained wrestler, so I don't think that that's very likely. But that could be fun.
He also asks the same question regarding the two Silvas. Do you see Vanderlei or Anderson Silva fighting again?
I think that they will both fight. I think Anderson will fight in the UFC. And I think he will do very well, and I know I will support him when that time comes. I think that Vanderlei should be allowed to fight. We'll see how that all plays out with his license status, but I don't know that he will. I think that, he might have ran his race as far as accomplishing the goals that he set out to accomplish. And I don't know Vanderlei. He and I are like oil and water, man. Every time I see him, there's some kind of a confrontation. So, if I was to guess, I think that we will see them both. I'm positive we will see Anderson.
Scott Anderson asks, What are the biggest challenges you've had going from the cage to broadcasting, either in podcasting or being a TV analyst?
Well, there's a learning curve. I can tell you, as a viewer, I watch a guy on television, whether he's reporting the news or he's reporting on sports, and it looks pretty easy. When I finally got put in my suit and sat behind the desk, I found out it's not easy. There's a lot of moving parts, getting in out of commercial break, tossing over to your television partner, listening to your IFD for directions from the producer in the back. There's a lot of moving parts. It's not as simple as I thought it was when I initially agreed to do it.
Okay. George asks, based on your tweet about Pizza Hut, is it safe to say you will never order from there?
Yeah, man, I was really disappointed, and I couldn't have been any hungrier when I made the order. I had competed that day. On days of competition, I don't eat the whole day. I go into the match, no matter how late it is, on an empty stomach. And in this case, the match was at 7 p.m., and when I ordered the pizza, it was almost 10 p.m., so I was very hungry, and I was very excited when it arrived, and they burned.
Man. Now, if I understand this correctly, you were with Jake Ellenberger and Fern O'Brien, who's also been a guest on this show, and your pizza didn't get any sauce. One guy's didn't get any cheese. There was some other mishap, right?
Yeah, that's right. We had 3 pizzas. One came with no sauce, one came with no toppings, and one came with no cheese. We thought it was a joke. We're like, this has to be a joke. It was basically just dough and crust. And this is a silly thing to complain about. I'm not trying to make too big of a deal about it, but you brought it up, or George brought it up at least. So, yeah, man, it was a terrible pizza. There's nothing else I can say about it. It was absolutely terrible.
Okay, Alan Wu. This is a bit of a personal question from Alan Wu. How is the married life treating you, and I guess the dad life?
Well, tell Alan I appreciate that question, and it's awesome. Man, it's awesome, but I am convinced you got to find the right person. And I took my time. I didn't get married right away, so I'm one of the lucky guys that was able to find the right person. So it's easy for me to say that it's a lot of fun. Not all marriages go that way, but I got lucky.
Okay, these last ones are from me. As of right now, knock on wood, unless Vitor breaks his hand or slips on a pipe and hits his head in the back, pulls a Kevin Randleman, we do have 2 title fights set for UFC 187. How do you see them going down?
Man, I think you're right. Both fights are going to happen, and they're going to be awesome fights. I don't know about the Daniel Cormier Anthony Johnson fight. Normally, I would lean towards Cormier and even think it was a mismatch, but the way Anthony's been fighting lately, I mean, it's like I don't even know the guy. It's you put Anthony Johnson of today in there with Anthony Johnson of 2010, today's Anthony Johnson would win that fight against himself in the first round. He's fighting so well, and there is something to be said for momentum, and it's on Anthony Johnson's side. Daniel Cormier, is coming off a loss. He's ready. He's in a great camp. That's just a really hard fight. I lean towards Cormier, but that is one where I'm kind of scratching my head saying, man, there's a few moving parts here. And as far as the Weidman fight, I think that Weidman's got a pretty good lock on this. Vitor Belfort is very dangerous early in the fight, and that danger meter tends to slide. Chris Weidman's dangerous throughout. I think it's a bit of a mismatch aside from that, potential big shot that Vitor could land in the first couple of minutes. And I expect Weidman to lead with the belt.
And I don't know how much you've been following WWE as of late, but is it all right if I ask you a prediction on the upcoming pay-per-view?
Absolutely.
All right, we got the WWE Payback main event. As of right now, they only have 2 matches scheduled, and we're less than a week out. But whatever. It's Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, we know Kane's probably going to get involved. Who do you see walking out the champ?
I don't think it's going to change hands on this pay-per-view. I think it stays with Seth Rollins. I don't think it's a big enough pay-per-view for them to put the title on somebody else. I think they missed a big opportunity to put it on Roman Reigns. I don't think that Seth Rollins is going to go very far as the champ. So my prediction for this weekend, though, will be that Seth Rollins retains the belt.
Okay, and with Seth Rollins retaining, bonus question, just one more. Who would you make as Mr. Money in the Bank for next month?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, Dean Ambrose is definitely growing a lot of steam right now. I think the best talent that wrestling has is Bray Wyatt. I think they should do a little bit more with him. He's very young, so I think that they're looking at him and saying, "Yeah, he is a great talent, but we've got time." I don't see any reason to wait. When you've got a guy as good as he is, as marketable as he is, as good of a character as he is, I think you put something big on him right away. So I would like to see it happen for Bray Wyatt.
All right, Chael. Well, we thank you so much for your time. The floor is now yours for people to find you online, either in the podcast world, TV, any events you got going on.
No, man. They can find me online. Twitter would probably be the only thing I would plug. Sonnen. I'm on there all the time, but this isn't about me, brother. This is about your wonderful show, Fred. I want to see you doing well, my man. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate you having me on. It was fun.
Thank you, sir. And if you enjoyed Chael on this show, you can check out his podcast on Podcast One. You're welcome with Chael Sonnen. And Chael, I thank you so much for your time. Great talking to you again. For those that don't know, Chael and I ran into each other a couple times when I worked on MMA Uncensored Live and Spike TV back in the day. Hard to believe it's been 3 years now. And I will tell you this, for any trash talk that people have towards you, Chael, I saw you once, actually twice, outside of Times Square signing autographs for a good half hour while Nate Quarry impatiently waited for you to go to the bar with him. So props to you for that.
I remember that. Yes, that was fun.
Good time. So, Chael, thanks so much.